Hey traders, in this video I'm going to be explaining some of the recent updates that the TradingView and PineScript development team have made to the PineScript language. So there'll be a link to this blog post below the video. I'm going to briefly explain what they say in this blog post, and then we'll jump to Pine Editor and have a quick look at some of these new features. There's nothing major here, just some quality of life improvements, although we do have a new drawing tool which is kind of cool, which is text boxes. So a quick overview of what we have now. We have function overloads, which just means that we can have multiple functions with the same name, but a different quantity or number of parameters. So you can see this function right here has the same name to its function, but one has 2 parameters and one has 3. In the past, if you tried to name a function with the same name, even though you had a different amount of parameters, the Pine editor wouldn't allow you to do that. The compiler would throw a tantrum and say, no, you can't do that because it confuses me when you use the same name twice. Well, now the PineScript interpreter or runtime environment, however the language compiles your code, it can now handle having the same name across multiple functions so long as you have a different number of parameters. The next change they have made to the language is they've added a for in operator. So this is particularly useful for looping through arrays. So before this change, to loop through an array, you would have to loop from 0 to the array max size, and your for loop would look like kind of like this: for I equals 0 to, I'm terrible at drawing with a mouse, to your array's max size, and you would have to loop through the array like this. Now you can just use the for in, so you can say for element in array, and that will loop through the given array ID, and element will be set to each array element in order from 0, the first index, up until the final element in that array. So that's a cool little quality of life improvement there. We also have some new string manipulation functions, for example, string.contains. So they have an example here. Let's copy this over to the Pine editor and paste that in there. Now this will plot 0, because we do not have an exclamation mark in our ticker ID. But if we go to a continuous contract in the futures market like this, now we'll plot 1 because we do have an exclamation mark in the ticker ID, and our string.contains function is returning true when this character is found within this string. Next up, we also have substring. So I'll copy this example code into the editor. So substring basically returns a piece of the given string. So what this code here is saying is we're getting an input, time to sell some NASDAQ Apple. Then we are getting the position, the index. So in a string, the first character is 0. Then we have 1, 2, 3, and so on. What this string.pos or position function is doing is it's getting us the index of this character within this string. And then the substring function is returning the original string, which is S. We're passing in S into the substring function. And then we are cutting all of the characters in this string up until our positional index of this colon character plus 1. So we're cutting out the colon as well. And what we're left with is just Apple. So if I create a new label here, L equals bar state dot is last question mark label dot new, and I'll just pass in the bar index and the current bar's high, and we'll set the text to TKR, which I'm guessing is short for ticker. If I save my code, hopefully this compiles. Oh, I need to finish my ternary statement there. Save my code. There we go. So now our string, our code is retrieving the string Apple from this long string here by getting the position of the colon character and then using the substring function to cut out all of the characters leading up to that colon character plus 1 to get rid of the colon as well. And we're left with Apple. So that's cool. We can now use some string functions that are common across other languages. These sorts of functions are cool to see being brought into Pine because it does make the language a little bit more mature and a little bit more capable of what other languages are capable of. We also have the string.replace, which will replace the target string in the source string with the replacement string, and then you can specify which occurrence to replace. So if you have more than one occurrence of your target string, you can replace it by referencing the index of 0 to replace the very first occurrence of that target string. So if I copy this code into our Pine editor, get rid of all this, paste that in there, and we'll just plot the new source string onto our chart. If I bring this down a bit, you can see that we have two occurrences of ftx here, and our string.replace function is replacing the first occurrence, the 0 index occurrence of ftx with Binance. If we set this to 1, it will replace the second occurrence of ftx. There you can see the first occurrence is still saying ftx, but the second one has been replaced with Binance. So those are some cool new functions there for strings. You can also convert strings into lowercase and uppercase. You can check if a string starts with or ends with a given string. So you pass in your source string and then a string to look for, and this will return true if the string starts with the given string or ends with the given string with these two functions. Then we have string.match, and you can pass in a regular expression here, which is basically a pattern. So this is a type of syntax for detecting patterns in text. We're not going to cover that in this course because it's a pretty obscure feature. I don't think that many of you, if any of you, will ever need to use regular expressions in your code. But if you do, there are plenty of guides out there on the internet, and regular expressions are the same across all programming languages. So if you look up a guide on how to identify patterns in text, you can use this function to pass in the pattern, the regular expression, your source string, and this will return true if that pattern is found in your text. Moving on, we have currency conversion. You can now convert the values that some functions return into another currency. So this applies to mostly financial functions. So we have the dividends function, the earnings function, the financial function. This all applies to stocks, but you can also use it on the security function. So if you need to, you can now pass in the s equals request.security. But hover over here, you can see at the end of our parameters list, we have currency. So you can now get a security value, so a particular market or symbol, and you can specify the currency that you want that data to be converted into by typing out currency equals currency.control space. Here are all the major foreign exchange currencies you can select from to convert whatever value you're getting into that currency. Moving on, we now have text boxes that we can also work with. I'll probably have to create a separate lesson on this because this is a new drawing tool that will come with a whole bunch of different features that we'll need to cover. But let's have a quick look at the box.new function. So yeah, we have a bunch of new box functions here to work with. I'm definitely going to need to cover this in its own lesson because we have a heap of functions here. This is a completely new drawing tool. So here they have an example. As an example of this feature, here's the built-in multi-time period charts indicator modified to display the number and the high and low of the week that it highlights. So it tells you the week number, the high and the low, and it draws a box around that week on this lower time frame. So that's just a quick summary of the features that came with this new PineScript update. Some of these features, like the for in, we'll definitely be using in future lessons. The function overload will be most useful in libraries, so we'll probably use this at some point if it makes sense to. I won't be using many string manipulation functions in my scripts because I don't do a lot of processing of text in my scripts. It's not a common thing that I do personally in my scripts. But if we have an opportunity to, I will cover some of these functions in future lessons, in practical examples. Currency conversion is also something I wouldn't use in my scripts. Personally, I just have no use for this. But again, if we come across a practical use case for this, I will demonstrate that in future lessons. Same with text boxes. I don't think I'll use this in my scripts, but I will try to find the time to record a detailed lesson on all of the box functions we have to work with now. And that will do it for this lesson. The links to this information will be below. Good luck with your trading, and I'll speak with you in the next lesson.